our minds and our lives. We pray that you will deepen our comprehension, broaden our thinking, and transform our understanding of sustainability and climate-related disclosures, and the role of their chartered accountants in the sustainability journey. For you are a wise counselor, our perfect teacher, and our faithful friend. Thank you, Lord. In Jesus' name we have prayed. Amen.
Thank you very much, Doc. Kindly take your seats. We welcome you all to this afternoon's event. And within the 20th and 21st century, we all can attest to the turbulence that the world has faced. We've gone through tsunamis, we've gone through earthquakes, and I don't think it's ending anytime soon. Now, as professionals, as people in business, we find ourselves in situations whereby our offices get flooded, your cars get flooded, your personal home. And let's see a business person who has his own business and go through this turbulence. Now, we have people in our finance and accounting world who need to report on some of these things. So corporate reporting has become relevant. In view of this, IFAC, the International Federation of Accountants, responsible for the accountancy profession globally, thinks it is time for the world to know how to report some of these things. And in view of this, the Institute of Chartered Accountants Ghana, ACCA, has come together for this panel discussion on sustainability and climate-related disclosure. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to just kick straight to our program as we've taken our opening prayer. So at this point, I think the two institutions invited us here. So we would want to call on the CEO of ICAG in the person of Mr. Kwesi Ajiman, FCA, to give us the purpose of our gathering. Let's welcome Mr. Kwesi Ajiman, FCA.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hansen. Once again, I'm also honored today to have my first ever boss here with us. I joined Coopers & Lybrand 1991, and the managing partner at the time, Mr. E.M. Boy, has honored us here today with his presence. Mr. Boy, welcome. And also privileged to have our colleagues from ACCA with us here, recognizing Jamal, Mr. Norman, Gamali, and the rest from the ACCA. Then my council, ICAG council members who are also here with us, led by Madam Sena Dake, the president of the institute. And the vice president, Mr. Augustine Ado, seated right by Madam President. And having some of our council members here, Mr. Ankama is here. Emmanuel, can we please see your face? Dr. Cynthia Sala just led us before the face of the Lord. Dr. Isaac Nani is also here. Madam Agnes Otuyabua and Madam Patience Marushi Jikunu, also a council member with us here. And the directors from the institute are also here with us. We are all welcome to this afternoon's event. Running our world and then getting into the future, you ask yourself, what we met or what we are enjoying today, will it be in existence for our children and our grandchildren? And then that is what we are referring to as the sustainability. If we wouldn't improve on what we have, we will leave it as it is when we move on, when we pass on. These are concerns for everybody. These days, you look everywhere, and there's a threat here in Ghana with respect to what we are doing to the environment. Then you see that we are threatened. The future is threatened. Everybody is talking about. If we are not careful, we will be importing even water to drink. The streams, the rivers that we used to see, which were, some of them were even looking blue. Now they are all looking like coffee, which is not good enough. Are we maintaining these nature issues that we found? If you are an individual, you ask yourself, are you sustainable? If you are a business, you do same. How can we live life after today, and then we get a future generation to come and enjoy the things that we are enjoying today? If you are an investor and you want to put your money into a business, you ask yourself, is the business sustainable? If not, definitely you wouldn't invest there, or whoever is setting up that business will not attract investments. So as a country, if you are not interested in sustainability issues, will we be able to attract investors to the country? We need to take care of our environment and make sure that the environment is very sustainable. With all this in mind, the IFRS Foundation in November 2001 set up the ISSB, the International Sustainability Standards Board in Glasgow, for them to get through how we can come about with respect to reporting on sustainability issues. Over the period, the board has worked so well and has issued two standards now, the IFRS S1 and IFRS S2. So internationally, it's all over. We need to blend sustainability reporting with integrated thinking and integrated reporting. IFAC, International Federation of Accountants, has also adopted these standards, and they are running. Ghana also looking at the importance of the maintenance of environment, and then also being attractive and then building on businesses. We cannot stay away from also adopting these standards. So ICAG Council, once again led by Madam Sena Dake, also taking steps to adopt these sustainability standards. With that, and then having ACCA, which is all over the world, and then also strongly represented here in Ghana, we decided to collaborate and have a roundtable conference, which we are hosting today. This conference, the purpose of it simply is to try to share knowledge with the public, share knowledge with our members, and then also helping us to build the capacity with respect to reporting on these sustainability issues. It's one of the things that the Institute has put together to build capacity with respect to sustainability matters. A steering committee has been set up to help build knowledge, to help build dossier of information that can be shared with practitioners, members, and even the business public in general with respect to how we will go about maintaining the standards here whilst we have adopted them, maintaining them, and then also ensuring that the tenets of the standards are being applied all over the place. If we do so, we think as a profession, we will do our bit in at least maintaining society. So if you are here and those of us listening to us on the various social media platforms as well as on radio, that's the purpose. Let's stay and listen to the experts that we have put together to build knowledge about sustainability and sustainability reporting. Thank you very much.
Each one. Thank you. At this point, we want to invite the president of ICAG to give us a welcome address. So, ladies and gentlemen, kindly welcome President Sena Dake to give us her welcome address. Oh, the tempo is gone down. I thought she's not here yet. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hansen, and good afternoon to you all. Distinguished guests, council members, management and staff of the Institute, esteemed members of the accounting profession, chairman and team of the Steering Committee on Sustainability, the ACCA president and her team, partners in development, the press, all other protocol observed. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring you warm greetings and akwaba from the Institute of Chartered Accountants, Ghana. Today's panel discussion is on sustainability and climate-related disclosures standards, specifically IFRS S1 and IFRS S2. This program holds great significance as part of ICA Ghana's 60th anniversary public engagement series. And what makes it more special is the fact that it's been organized in partnership with ACCA. Please clap for it. Over these 6 decades, we have been steadfast in our commitment to excellence, integrity, and the pursuit of knowledge. And it is with this same unwavering dedication that we now embark on a new era of sustainability, shaping the future as responsible leaders and guardians of our planet. ICA Ghana, as the regulator of the accountancy profession in Ghana, was part of the standards development process, and we made significant contributions to the exposure drafts which were issued by the ISSB before the deadline in July 2022. ICA Ghana has already set up the steering committee for the adoption, promotion, and rigorous application of the standards. And on 26 June 2023, Ghana joined the global world, and in particular, Nigeria, to launch the 2 standards on behalf of Africa. At the launch, we announced our early adoption and made commitments to help other countries in our sub-region as we consider ourselves as pacesetters. We are poised to link sustainability to business resilience as we build capacity of our members and the public on the intricacies of the standard and their profound implications for our collective journey towards a sustainable future. Ladies and gentlemen, as the world grapples with the pressing challenges posed by climate change, we as chartered accountants have a crucial role to play in guiding businesses and stakeholders. ICA Ghana is conscious of the need for Ghana to have a green economy as a country. We cannot ignore the fact that climate change will impact cash flows, access to finance, cost of capital over various time frames. We must face these challenges head-on, leveraging our expertise to disclose pertinent information and enabling our stakeholders to make informed decisions. We are emphatically declaring today 3 things. 1, Ghana deserves more foreign direct investments and grants to meet its sustainability development agenda. 2. Business leaders and stewards of both public and private investments must develop positive attitudes to our environment and to financial management systems to increase the wealth from sustainable businesses. Government, businesses, and households would need to maintain energy efficient infrastructure and assets that would allow us reduce the carbon emission and pollution. Here, we are appealing to all sectors and the general public that we should all make efforts to reduce energy consumption and utilize assets that drive down the carbon footprint and prevent the loss of biodiversity in our ecosystem. ICA Ghana is leading the accountancy profession in Ghana alongside key partners like ACCA and stakeholders to bridge the knowledge gap and build capacity of accountants and other professions, business leaders and the public as well, to enhance our appreciation of how the sustainability trends should shape corporate values. Ladies and gentlemen, the path to a sustainable future requires collective efforts. By harnessing our mutual expertise, we can empower organizations, investors, and societies at large. Today's discussion will explore the synergies between two standards, IFRS S1 and IFRS S2, the alignment with global sustainability frameworks, and the associated challenges and opportunities in Ghana. We hope our engagement will address how these standards can influence capital allocation decisions, boost investor confidence, and a broader transition to listen attentively to our seasoned resource persons, exchange perspectives, and actively participate as you share your insights and challenge conventional thinking. May this discussion provide actionable communique that would guide our organizations, regulators, standard setters, policymakers on a transformative journey we have started. Ladies and gentlemen, let us all strive for innovative solutions and inspire one another to push the boundary of what is possible, because the role of business today can no longer be just business. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Madam President. She set the tone for our discussion this afternoon. And I wish to say that this program has been put together by ICAG in partnership with ACCA Ghana. And then we are also streaming live on ICAG YouTube, ACCA Ghana YouTube, ICAG H1 on Facebook. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time to listen to our panelists. It is time for us to listen to how we're going to sustain the globe through the standards that IFAC will come up with. I'll take this privilege to welcome our moderator for this afternoon to unveil our speakers who will take us through the discussion. I'm privileged to invite the Director of Technical and Research of ICA Ghana, Mr. Osei Ejejemfi, who would moderate this session and also invite the speakers to the stage. Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you so much, Hansen, for that introduction. Before I introduce our panelists, let me make a short statement. Following the release of the standards for which we are here, the S1 and S2, ICAG the regulator of the accountancy profession and practice, launched a series of capacity building and awareness creation initiatives. And it is to guide professionals and also industry players to assess their readiness to adopt and implement these new standards. Indeed, the reason why we are here is as a result of a collaboration between ICAG and ACCA to have this panel discussion so that we'll identify the role of the accountant in all these. Now, as we approach the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, also known as Paris Agreement 2030, sustainability issues will be at the center stage. But where will we be as accountancy professionals? These and many more questions are packaged for our panelists, and they'll be here to unpack them for us. So for a start, let me introduce our panelists, not in any particular order. We will start with Mr. Andy Okoto. If he's here, please let's see you on the stage. Andy Okoto is a partner risk consulting and compliance with KPMG Ghana, and also chairman of the steering committee, committee of council set up to see to the adoption and implementation of these new standards. So you're welcome. Then we also want to invite Mr. Jamil Ampoma. Jamil Ampoma is ACC Director for Africa. Let's welcome with applause. Sir, you are welcome. Then we also want to invite Mr. Kwabna Intrisitu. Kwabna Intrisitu is a partner assurance with Deloitte. He's a member of the SMG implementation group and also a member of the steering committee of ICAG. We also want to invite the ICAG president to be with us so that it wouldn't be only male dominated. There should be some gender balance. So we invite her to join the panel. Let's give her applause. As we seek to unpack the issues that are so germane to sustainability issues. So, ladies and gentlemen, you are welcome to the discussion. I would like to start with you, Andy Okoto. Mr. Okoto, as accountants, we are so familiar with the standards set by ISSB, International Accounting Standards Board. Now we have a new body, ISSB, that sets standards on sustainability. Why will ask this question? Since it's all has to do with financial reporting, why don't we assign this to ISB? Why a new body? Can you help us with it?
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator, and good afternoon to everyone once again. The question you ask seems to suggest that sustainability matters would usher us into another area of financial reporting, but that is not the case. As was introduced by the CEO of the Institute and also the President, sustainability matters actually began to gain currency in the early 2000s when there was a lot of conversation about climate change. At the beginning, one of the most prominent people that actually touted the risk of climate change was the former Vice President of the United States, Al Gore. And the conversation went on and on until the United Nations itself, some 10 years ago, also felt the need to actually elevate the conversation of sustainability to the global level. Before that, accountants were being enjoined not to just focus on financial reporting, but also non-financial reporting. to do with accountable governance in the way corporates and entities are managed. And for that matter, you had various entities all trying to come up with various sustainability reporting standards. And therefore, it came to a point where it was necessary to kind of amalgamate or consolidate all these varying reporting instruments. As a matter of fact, a KPMG research indicates that around 2016, there were about 384 sustainability reporting instruments across some 34 countries around the world. By 2020, this has gone up to about 614 across 84 countries or jurisdictions around the world. So you could see that everybody was trying to kind of stand up to the accountable governance and sustainability practices that was taking over the world in order to leave a more responsible footprint in the way we manage global resources and, of course, natural resources. So the IFRS Foundation thought it wise to usher in a body that is focused on this particular agenda so that we have one global baseline, or if you like, a common language of reporting sustainability matters. Therefore, resulting in the ISSB are separate from the IASB, because IASB is International Accounting Standards Body, complemented by International Sustainability Standards Body. Focusing on the IFRS in particular, because in terms of responsible governance and reporting, the IFAC, together with the standards promulgated by its bodies, has become the benchmark for global comparative reporting. And therefore, it was felt that the IFRS, more than anybody else, will be in a position to usher in a harmonious sustainability reporting environment that all corporates can plug into and allow us to have a very systematic, consistent, and harmonious way of reporting on sustainability standards. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Komnasiti. Would like to add?
Yeah, thank you very much. So just to add to our steering committee chairman, two main things also has driven this. We have because the standard is investor focused. So the demands from investors also require that this thing needs to be separated because we are trying to merge a non-financial something with a financial something. So investors wanted a more focus on the non-financial, so that we can distinguish between the two. Number two, when it comes to this standard, we are dealing with new set of skills required. Unlike the normal financial reporting standard that the accountants can interpret and stuff like that, with the sustainability reporting standard, you are bringing together different set of skills. So that require a more, should I say, a more focused attention, because different skills are now coming together to make sure that this thing works. So from the investor side, there was a need to do that. And then from the skill set side, there was also the need to do that. Thanks. Yeah.
Thank you so much for unpacking this question for us. Now, let me come to you again, Mr. Situ, this time. Before the establishment of ISSB, we know organizations that were existing that had their own sustainability policies. We can talk about value reporting framework foundation that came out with the integrated reporting and ISSB standards. Yeah. We also have the global reporting initiative before the set of ISSB. And so with the new standard, how does it fit in with the already existing standards?
Very good question. And I think I'll pick it from what Andy said. Andy said something that this new standard is providing a global baseline. Very important. is providing a global baseline, meaning that what they intend to do eventually is to have this standard that everybody can feed into it. So even recently, was it last month, the ISSB has now taken over the function of the TCFD. So they are consolidating efforts, consolidating efforts. So it's very, very important that we situate it well. So it is a global baseline standard, and eventually, what you realize is that they all feed into one. Now, even if you look at even the standard itself within the S1, you realize that there is even a guidance on you able to rely on the SASBs. So if you are providing some disclosures and the S1 or S2 isn't there, in terms of the specific disclosure you require, you can, in fact, the standard specifically say you shall rely on the SASB, and then other standards also come into being. So that is how the whole thing is situated. Eventually, that global baseline will be realized. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Kuto. Would like to add?
Yeah, sorry. The only clarity that I was bringing to this was that our viewers and audience should be prepared for a lot of abbreviations. And because we want to break down and unpack the conversation for the benefit of everyone, you are going to hear a lot of these abbreviations. But for the sake of clarity regarding what my co-panelists just submitted, when you talk about SASB, a Sustainability Accounting Standards Board, SASB. When you talk of TCFD, we are talking about Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures, which is also one of the reporting instruments that was around. When you hear GRI, Global Reporting Initiative, and so on and so forth. So pardon us if we are not able to readily recall and if you like, explain some of these terminologies, because unfortunately that's the arena in which we find ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you so much for unpacking this for us. Now, just a follow-up question, Kobna, and if Andy too can come in. So what happens to organizations that has their already existing standards on sustainability?
Okay, so if you look at the S1, S2, for example, and you look at some of the transitional reliefs, you realize that in one of the transitional, for example, you go to S2, you realize that you are required to use okay, I'm now trying not to use short things, right? So the greenhouse, okay, I'm used to short things. GH, yeah, greenhouse gas protocol methodology, right? So yes, within the S2, you are more or less asked to use that one in order to determine when you are measuring your scope one, the S1, S2, S3. Okay, I'm still using, right? No problem. So, but the relief says that if a company already is using a methodology, the transitional relief is you can still continue to use that whatever methodology you are using, but with time then you come back and then see the processes you can put in place and start using what the S2 is requiring you to use. So eventually we will merge somewhere. You can still use some of the standard you are using, but as long as ICA has now adopted S1, S2 as much as possible, you need to now start thinking of how do I implement the S1 and then the S2. Yes, but you can still implement other standards. It doesn't spoil the soup. So if your investors require it, why not? But the baseline should be the S1 and then the S2. Yes.
Thank you so much for unpacking this question also for us. Now, let me come to you, Jamil. Um, from the perspective of accountants in business, those who work in industry and preparers of financial statement, in the implementation journey, what are some of the gaps that you can envisage that need to be supported so that it can be able to go along with the institute in the implementation of standards?
Thank you for that question. I think there are several areas to consider. If we talk about gaps, I just want to situate the conversation around the fact that we've heard that there are some organizations that have already started to report on sustainability. So if we bring it to the context in Ghana, our practitioners and also preparers would be at different stages of, if you like, appreciation of the requirements. So that in itself creates gaps across a spectrum. And I think that is very important. So I think the capability gap in terms of being able to understand what is required from a reporting perspective is number one. I mean, I think that cuts across. You may also then say that some of the preparers may be starting, from a reasonable base because they may be working, for example, with multinational organizations or organizations that are required to, if you like, provide some sustainability information. Then you go to the other end of the spectrum where there will be organizations who have absolutely no idea about how to go about this. And I think then it becomes urgent in terms of how they are able to grapple with reporting. And they are in preparing sustainability reports. This is probably the only report in which truly will rely on so many other, stakeholders. So when I talk about communities, I'm talking about the stakeholders and the input that they would bring into the conversation. So how would preparers go about engaging those communities to be able to bring them into the conversation, to get a level of appreciation of the realities and reflect that in the report? I think there's also another element around consistency of, reporting. So, and I think that has been a challenge even before now. It is great to see sustainability reports of organizations. Some may have 100-page reports. I recall a few months ago, we had an interaction and my co-panelist, Kobna, was presenting. I think he tried to share with us an example of a report, which was into the hundreds of pages. Admittedly, it's linked to the size of the organization. But it is very important that whatever information is presented, whether it is from a 5-page report or a 50-page report, if I am an investor and I pick that report, I should be able to make sense of it and compare it with similar entities, at least, if they are all operating in the same space. So from assurance and from a preparer's perspective, I think there needs to be an urgent setting of the baseline. And I think I wasn't actually aware that there was a steering committee that had already been set up. So I'm flanked on the left and right by steering committees of IC, and that is excellent, because that was one thing I was going to sort of suggest, that urgently there needs to be a committee in place to now develop a roadmap. So I think one of the biggest tasks of the steering committee is really defining, what are the basics, the baseline. And, quite frankly, the question you've asked is very loaded. You've given me just, limited time, because I'm sort of thinking about practically, an organization which is about, 20 million turnover, small organization, maybe 2 finance people, you're asking them to prepare sustainable. I mean, how are they going to go about it? So I think another challenge would be how to gain access to quick reference guidance on how to pull this together. And I'm hoping that the committee, you'll be thinking about this and coming up with, clear guidance so that, preparers and assurers will be clear about how they do that. I think another gap is, and forgive me, I'm sure you want to stop me, but another gap.
I wouldn't stop you.
Okay, thank you. Another gap is really around and I talked about the communities, but I think there are some very key players who I think are still absent from the conversation. So at the moment, I think the engineers are not aware of this. The lawyers are not aware of this. There are a number of professions who now become very central, and they don't have to be in the room with us, but they need to be part of this conversation so that they understand right from the onset. So I think it is important that those considerations come to bear. Now, if I move to the profession and what the profession can do, you've talked about, some of the challenges around, what IFAC and the subsidiary bodies have been trying to do. I think as POs, we need to find ways of coming up again with a very clear approach to sharing best practice and being able to collaborate and partner. And I'm very pleased that we are sharing this platform because I think there's a lot to learn, but there are also some low-hanging fruits that we need to look at. But the most urgent ask, from, I would say maybe users and preparers would be for the professional accounting organizations to give some guidance, and some direction in terms of what to do. So I think beyond forums such as this, it would be important to now have the how to, if you like, whether it's manuals or, and really start thinking about how to bring that to bear and make that available. So for us at ACCA, we've done some work in this regard in the past, and through some research we've done, we've been able to specifically highlight areas that we feel, for example, different categories of finance professionals should be focusing on. I think that sort of guidance will be very important. I'll probably stop here for now. I'm sure maybe my panelists will have more to add. Thank you.
Yes, indeed, your answer is also loaded. Yes, Madam, maybe you should also be thinking about how ICAG can help bridge the gap through collaboration and partnership. But before that, then listen to the perspective of assurance providers.
Sorry, probably before you go there, okay. just to add to what my brother said. So in a survey that we also carried out, the Deloitte survey, we realized that two main things were headaches for people. One is data, and I know Andy Akoto has a lot of experience in data analytics and all that. So data, how do you get the data to speak to each other? Very, very important. So is the data available? Because you have all these data sitting, scattered all around. How do you pull these things together? Number two is connectivity. Because remember, you are trying to connect the financial with the non-financial. They do not sit in silos. You must let them speak together. Connectivity. And because the ISSB realized that this, especially the connectivity, is a big issue, in their current consultation paper, they are now working with the ISSB to deal with that connectivity issue. So that is a project that is going on. How do we connect the financial with the non-financial? Now, to come to the materials, how people can educate themselves, because the skill set is also very important. Now, the standard itself comes with what we call the educational material, and this is very important for professional accountants. And these are some of the materials we, even as steering committee, will rely on to break it down further for professional accountants. So there is what we call the educational material, and the educational material are in two ways, in two forms. Currently, we have the general educational material, and then we have the specific educational material, which speaks to economies like ours and SMEs. So the materials are there. And then also the standard itself comes with what we call the application guidelines, and then what we call the accompany guidelines. So these are very important things, and I'm sure at a later date in the steering committee meeting, we'll see how best we can deploy some of these things. So these are key things that we are going to use. In fact, every accountant, our advice that after this session, please visit the ifrs.org website, locate yourself to the ISSB part of the website. So many information, so many educational materials there. Please don't just go to sleep. We are in this thing together, right? We are in this thing together. So I think that's what I wanted to say. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Before I come to Mr. Akoto, to give us some insight into the perspective from assurance. Let me just announce this. We are joined by 433 on YouTube and also 32 on Facebook. So, Mr. Akoto, we are listening to the perspective of those who prepare financial information and those who work in industry. But what about assurance practitioners? What can you say about the gaps that you can identify?
Okay, thank you very much. These questions are loaded. But let me first of all also hasten to add that this conversation is not limited to accountants. In fact, it is more for non-accountants than accountants. Accountants are kind of taking the lead, as I said before, because they have had the discipline, the practice, and the rigor of putting together controlled reporting standards. Okay, but no one should delude themselves into thinking that, oh, well, there goes the accountants, let me just switch off. No, sustainability is a conversation that is cross-cutting, and everyone should be concerned, because if you look at the main standards upon which the ISSB has based its standards 1 and standards 2, it embraces certain pillars in governance processes, traversing the processes, the procedures, the controls, where sustainability, information, and data, okay, is managed. It traverses the conversation of risk, okay, how sustainability, risk, and opportunities are identified and managed. It also talks about even strategy, how sustainability related matters impact on the business model and the strategy, and other metrics, and so on and so forth. So I just wanted to put that across. Having said that, the conversation of assurance is not something that can be overemphasized, because however you look at it, at some point in time, somebody has to be able to check whether you are actually doing as is expected. Unfortunately, the S1, S2 standards that have been issued right now has been very, very quiet on the assurance aspects that go with these standards. Having said that, the IFRS Foundation and the ISSB board are encouraging various local jurisdictions to they themselves look at their maturity indexes and determine exactly what kind of assurance standards to apply. So, for example, even before these standards came out, there were a number of entities that were trying to more or less also access global funding, but then these funding sources were being tied to they ascribing to certain sustainability principles. Okay, and I remember the first set of engagements that some of us got into, we were encouraged to apply what is known as either limited or reasonable assurance to the assertions and to the disclosures that were being made by these corporates in terms of positioning themselves to qualify for these funding. And some of the indicators that some of these funding sources, for example, were looking for were matters to do with gender equality. Okay, if you go into the agricultural or cocoa sector, we are talking about things like child labor. Okay, we are talking about, for example, the number of shade trees that are planted. We are talking about how communities are consistently orientated and educated
about sustainable farming practices. Okay, and these are not very easy standards to manage. And so in our first set of assurance engagements, we were going with limited assurance, okay, which is to say that we are trying to look for evidence that is okay to be able to give, if you like, a negative opinion that in our view, we have not come across anything that seems to suggest that this entity has done A or B. So the conversation of assurance, I believe, with the power vested in various accounting and reporting jurisdictions, will have to be taken up by ICAG in the course of the work of the steering committee, for example, so that for us, we determine to what extent and how we are going to also assure those investors that when reports are made, that, for example, we are complying with this metric A or metric B. Indeed, we are saying what we mean, and we are meaning what we also say. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I want to ask some.
Yes. So I think the good thing for practitioners is that I just read that from 1st August, they are going to issue an exposure draft on what they call the ISA 5000. And I happened to just quickly scan through that standard, and it has 9 parts. So when it comes up, in fact, it deals with various issues: how to even accept engagements, how to determine materiality, all those things. And the 9th part deals with reporting. What kind of report do you issue? As Andy said, either you are doing a limited review or a reasonable assurance. So all those things has been spelled out within that exposure draft that is coming up. And I think I see this is a fine opportune time to, when it comes up, let's gather around it, see how best we can make our input. And also the good thing is, for ACCA angle, I was part of the ACCA Global Roundtable that was also discussing issues around this same assurance standard, and they were making input into some of the ethical and independence considerations of these assurance engagements. So, and the discussion has been very, very lovely, because you have people coming from various angles, bringing their views, and it was very engaging. So I will encourage that from 1st August, when the exposure draft comes up on this ISA 5000, please make your input. Don't go and sleep, and then when the standard finally comes out, you say, this people, they are worrying us. But it has always been in the system. So make your contribution to the ISA 5000. Thank you.
Yes, indeed. And we'll comment on the exposure draft. And I'm also very happy that you mentioned that it's not about risk when it comes to sustainability, it's also opportunities. Now, we come to you, Madam President. We've identified gaps that need to be bridged. But as a regulator, how can we bridge the gap through collaboration and partnership?
All right. Thank you. And the first opportunity for us as an institute is to build capacity. As has been rightly said, it's not just the standard as a formality, but it must be implemented and applied at all levels: public, private, all sectors, mining, finance, agri, whichever sector you find yourself, there is a stake there for you. Now, what ICA Ghana is doing and intends to continue doing is to build capacity of all accountants, because by Act 1058, Section 44, all those practicing accounting are supposed to comply with the standards that have been adopted by ICA Ghana. And so by regulation and by law, we are supposed to partner with our organizations, help their institutions to do specialized training for them. For the donor agencies who require specific standard reporting formats, they will probably need to be consulting ICA Ghana to help to build the capacity of the accountants and auditors. And that is one side of the capacity building. For our practitioners, ICA Ghana regulates the audit practice. our accountancy practice. And so whilst we build the capacity of those doing the implementation, those who are doing the review must also have a fair share of the capacity building. Beyond that, we have a unit which is in charge of quality assurance, and they do regular monitoring. And through their monitoring processes, they would have to go through the standard application and be sure that there is compliance accordingly. In addition to that, ICA Ghana administers examination. And so in 2024, when we are due to revise our examination syllabus, ICA has an opportunity to review the syllabus in line with this new standard so that our examination and what we use to train the future professionals will be relevant for the world globally. Thank you very much.
Yes, so that seems like a lot of work for all of us. Now, let's come to you again, Mr. Akoto. The standards have been released June 26, 2023, and we are looking at January 2024. Now, between June and then January 2024, what would the ISSB be doing? What would be their focus before that date?
Thank you for that question. In fact, the ISSB is going to even get more busy because their work is not completely done. Beyond the some of the standards mentioned by my co-panelists, for example, they are looking at issuing a sustainability taxonomy. And when I talk of taxonomy, in other words, how terminologies mean when they are used in reports or they are used in any context to do with sustainability conversation, because you may mention, for example, greenhouse gas emissions in the context of Europe, which might be different from that of Australia, or it might be different from that of the US. And so there is still some active work that is going to go on. There are a few other exposure drafts that they are working on between now and then. The substantive matter, though, is to also continue to work to issue more detailed guidelines, all right, so that increasingly there is consistency with the way in which local jurisdictions are going to roll it out. And I say that because they are minded by the fact that in spite of these standards coming out, various countries, various jurisdictions will be at different levels of maturity and will also have different priorities. So just coming into this session, for example, I picked up that, for example, the Financial Standards Board of the United Kingdom is actively also looking at when they take that adoption decision. All right. And leading up to that, there are various conversations to make sure that come June 2024, that decision would have been taken. But it doesn't mean that they are not going to encourage companies and corporates to begin to voluntarily begin to report, okay, on these standards. So what I can foresee, all right, is a scenario where for a number of entities in Ghana, for example, our economy is littered with MSMEs, all right, that they can begin to, in their own way, identify with the core principles of this sustainability conversation and in their own way begin to show responsible governance. The Bank of Ghana sustainability principles, for example, were very clear. They came out with about 7 set of principles, including corporate governance and ethics, financial inclusion as a matter of course, environmental, social, risk management, and the rest. So one can begin to look at all these paradigms of good sustainability practice and begin to bring these non-financial disclosures as part of their own reports so that any investor looking to work with these entities will be like, I think that is a very responsible institution. I can put my money in there and I'm sure my money will be safe. Because after all, they are being either environmentally responsible, socially responsible, and what have you. So I can see a scenario where increasingly, by the time we hit 2024, okay, there will not be only a lot of work at the ISSB level, but also at the global level, a lot of work leading to various stages of adoption and even in terms of prioritizing sectors. So, for example, the public interest sectors, for example, will be one of those that come under immediate scrutiny. I'm not surprised, therefore, that, for example, the Ghana Stock Exchange and the Bank of Ghana has taken the lead in the market. But increasingly, you begin to see also standards being then rolled out to the public sector and others. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Governor City, want to ask?
Yes. So I think Andy is spot on. So in between, the ISSB would like to do a lot of capacity building, working with partners in various jurisdictions, so that the education can be more, awareness can be more. And then also, if you look at it, it's actually seeking feedback on its consultation agenda on which projects they want to prioritize. You look at the consultation agenda, you realize that 4 main projects are in there. One, they want to see whether they can start dealing with biodiversity, ecosystem services. They also want to see whether they want to deal with human capital. They want to see whether they want to deal with human rights. And then I think the last project is the connectivity, which they want to work with the IESB. So these are the areas, but we should be prepared for more of the X something. In fact, what we believe in Deloitte is that there's going to be at least 12 of the S's. Because in Europe, they have about 12 dealing with each S, dealing with specific area. So I'm sure they will go that extent at a minimum. So we have S1, S2, 10 more to go.
That's so exciting, eh? Yes, let's come back to Madam President.
So in fact, we'll be in jobs for a very long time.
Okay, that's fine. Let's come back to Madam President. Yes, Madam President, you actually spoke about what ICG has done so far with the publication of the standards in March 2022. I want you to reiterate, maybe expand on what we have done since the publication of standards.
Thank you. Since the contributions we made to the standard development in July 2022, ICA Ghana has had CPDs for its members. We've had our 2023 annual conference themed on sustainability, trust, and partnership, and sustainability was discussed extensively with members and the community of professionals that participated. ICA, apart from setting up a steering committee, had made a presence at the launch of the standards in Lagos, where ISSB, Nigeria, and a few other African countries. I think Ghana was very paramount in the discussion because Ghana was able to declare its early adoption, and the ISSB was very pleased and are ready to work with Ghana. And what it means is that we should be ready for engagement with investors, because this, as Mr. Situ said, is investor focused, and many organizations or partners who are investing want to see the reporting on sustainability. And so if Ghana has taken the lead to prepare itself, to prepare its members, then we stand a chance of being a mentor to other West African or other African countries, because most of them have not yet gotten to the stage where we have reached. Beyond that, we have programs that have been lined up which the steering committee is championing. And by the close of this year, a number of engagements will be held. I believe these are a few things that the Institute will be doing. Thank you.
Right, good. Now, let's come to you, Jamil. Yes, we are talking about our role. First of all, as those who prepare financial information, what do you think should be the role of accountants? And also, do you foresee any challenges on the road to implementation?
Yeah, maybe before I respond to that, if I just add to what the president has said, I think it would be good to also just maybe touch on what ACCA has been doing. I think from an ACCA perspective, we very much take a sort of collaborative partnership approach to our work. And in Africa specifically, we have started to engage, with a number of countries. So we were actually present and part of the launch in Nigeria. We also working with Zimbabwe, and of course engaging with Ghana as well. We are planning to continue to do that across the board because we believe that sharing of those experiences and best practices enriches the experience. Now, to your question in terms of the challenges that will be faced, I think so. I like to be very practical. I think that if you look at standards, most standards, and I think Kwabena mentioned that, he made a statement that these people are worrying us. And I think traditionally, when standards, are coming to force, that is the reaction. And I think, there's a history to that because I think if you look back in Africa, especially, we were not very much involved in the engagement process, and it was more or less thrust upon us. So there's that sort of feeling that they're just asking us to do things. I think one challenge that we need to try and overcome is to get preparers to actually be excited about what they are doing, because I think for me personally, as someone who used to be a practicing accountant, I see this as probably one of the standards that you can really justify why we should implement it, because it's really existential. So I think the challenges that preparers will grapple with, obviously, is the one on the fact that they are financial in orientation, but then what they are being asked to do is more or less non-financial. It cuts across different areas. So it doesn't mean they need to build capacity. That would create some apprehension. And I think to balance that, I think that excitement is important so that they see that this is a crusade where they are actually sort of leading the charge, of course with support from others, but they are really driving the conversation. I think that for me, that is one of the challenges that I see. I think another challenge from a preparer's perspective, and I'm looking at from a preparer's, I'm looking at the organization. We talked about the fact that in our part of the world, we have a lot of MSMEs. So it's not the actual preparation, but if you step back another level, it's about, oh gosh, how much is it going to cost us? So that becomes a challenge where people will be thinking, this is another cost. So for me, practically, how is that addressed? And I think maybe from a steering committee's perspective, it might also be very good to make it clear that the benefits outweigh the costs. I think those elements are very important. So that challenge I also anticipate will come through. I think broadly with the preparers, the fact that we've talked about different stages of ability. I think it would be good if there's an opportunity for mentoring where those who have been there are able to share. And I know I'm flanked by big four firms, but if I'm sure for them as well, if from a sort of CSR perspective, they could be thinking about how do we, bring these, because those are some of the real sort of challenges that, they'll be facing. How do we do it? What's the cost of doing it? And really, will it make sense? So I think that confidence, needs to be built, and it's great that you already have, your committee going, but you shouldn't only just look at the assurance side, because with the assurance, although we said S1, S2 doesn't really give clear guidance on assurance engagement. It's going to come, and it's not new. This is being done, but I think for us the biggest challenge will be more on the preparer side. Some of the challenges we sit on this panel and we can come up with some of them, but I think practically we need to be also create forums where we engage preparers and hear from them, so that we are able to also add to that and try and address that. I think those would be all the points I'd like to make for now. Thanks.
Okay, I think Kona is itching to add, but please also attack it from the practitioner's perspective.
So, Jamil he has raised very important point, because on the global ACC roundtable, a question that came up from the preparer side is that when this thing is coming from the regulatory, that is, you need to comply because your regulator says comply. One big issue that took center stage discussion was that preparers will be tempted to do what we call greenwashing. They will package the thing and present it to the public, to satisfy the requirements. But really, you need to step back and look at the benefits. So I think it's very important, because once you enter into greenwashing, everything, all the building you have been building since has crumbled, because then you are just trying to tick the box. Yeah, so I think that is very important. Thanks.
Yes, Sakoto, if you can come in with a practitioner's perspective.
Yes, and the conversation on greenwashing throws up the quality of the data, and whether it can be concretely evidenced as well as traceable in terms of how you actually support whatever assertions that you make in your annual reports. Okay, so the quality of the data is also a gap that organizations will have to recalibrate their systems to be able to collect, okay, and actually manage this data, so that when it comes to reporting, they are not found wanting. I can easily see in the advent of these standards a number of business models changing. So, for example, if there was never a chief sustainability officer in an organization, I can see the position of a chief sustainability officer emerging. The challenge, though, is that where are you going to get the qualified resources to also man these positions? Okay, so increasingly, academic institutions must also be thinking about how they introduce curricula around this in order to also prepare the future chief sustainability officers, who will now be able to also step in and help manage this very important agenda, so that we avert the proverbial greenwashing. Because if we don't do that, then investors will lose faith in our ability to ascribe to these very laudable principles.
Very, very good. We are getting closer to the end of our discussion, but there's mention of green washing. Now, what about green finance? Those who prepare financial statements and practitioners and those working in government institutions, they have a role to play to assist government to access some of these funds. How can that be done? Any of you can take up this question if you would. But Jamil.
I'll give it a shot. Yeah, I think the bottom line is that, and I believe President alluded to that when she started the conversation, that a lot of the drivers, and if you look at Ghana and even some of the challenges we are facing, and some of the developing countries. We see that in the global financial space, especially if you want to go to the the markets, the proper markets. They start applying ESG, they start applying all sorts of variables, and they begin to rate us, and we know that has happened. So how do you deal with that? I think the government and the public sector angle is even more urgent. When we talk about green finance, if you look at Africa, what contribution are we making, collectively? Are we able to quantify that? For those of you who travel, if you fly across the DRC, all that green vegetation, what contribution is that making? And who's benefiting from that? If we come to Ghana, we have so many examples. And I know the coffee example was given, but I think that may be an exception. There are some very good examples of how we are also contributing, to, if you like, green preservation, which could then be monetized, to support. So I think government at the moment, you find not just in developing countries, but even in developed economies, a lot of the reporting that has been done on sustainability, we talked about 20 years ago when Al Gore started and all those conversations. I think a lot of that was targeting private business, oil, gas, those that instinctively we thought were, causing harm, But then if you look at, a country like Ghana, how can government account and really report on sustainability? That's coming actually, and I'm sure now you can give the specifics. But the IFSSB is working on that. It will come through. Obviously, as you know, it follows S1, S2. They will also then bring that about. But I think maybe from a committee perspective, maybe you also need to have like a government work stream, because you would need to start thinking about how you engage government. And I think there are some specific sectors within government that will be low-hanging fruits. So, for example, those sectors who are in the extractives, there are some sectors that are already mandated to even report because of what they do. But you can be proactive in that regard, because once you've got a committee, if you look at you bringing public sector as a work stream, you can then bring in the ministries of finance, the relevant organizations to start sort of engaging and working with us. But I think for us as a country, that is a no-brainer. If we are able to, get our green credentials right, we can access green finance. Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, that's very good. Comrade, you want to ask some? That's fine. Yeah, so we are getting closer to the end of the discussion. Now, I've been asking all the questions. It's time for you, audience, to ask your questions. So, the in-person audience, online audience, it's time for you to ask questions. In fact, I don't have access to my platform, so if somebody can help me with the questions from Facebook and also from other social media channels, right? So, in person, is there anyone with a question or contribution? Is welcome. Mhm. Okay.
If we have questions for us in here, any contribution as well. And just to remind you, we are live on Facebook and YouTube. Currently, we have about 400
Thank you. My name is Justice. I work for Star Assurance. I was just happy with Mr. Jamel's last contribution, the role of government and what they are supposed to do. I believe that as accountants, we reflect what is happening. But I believe also that the investor wants to invest in a sustainable environment. But most of the time, it is not directly the fault of the private firm. I believe Madam President spoke about partnership. So if we engage government and see what policies, for instance, if you look at the insurance sector, urbanization is creating a lot of increased risk for the insurance people. We are building without recourse to the environment. And every time there is rain, there is a lot of flood. So how can we partner government to influence policy to ensure that we build responsibly and then take good care of the environment? Madam President, I believe you can talk in this answer.
Okay, so like you rightly said, the risk that goes along with the environment and the climate issues are very many. What's important is that the standards have put out certain strategies to make these risks become opportunities. And the first thing is to be able to identify the specific risk and then assess it and be able to put in mitigating measures. So if for the insurance industry, certain specific risks have been identified, then that must be a targeted mitigation plan or process that the institute can collaborate with the NIC to be able to come out with some strategies that will be beneficial to not only the accountants but to the management of those insurance companies, because it is not just having a benchmark from the standard perspective, but it's about making the financial reporting or the sustainability reporting of the insurance companies bring yield value to the insurance company, making whatever reporting that is going on bring value that would yield wealth back to the insurance industry. It's about making that risk become an opportunity for even increased employment, where there are so many organizations that have not insured their buildings, and the opportunity for engaging more people to have their buildings insured and lower their risk or mitigate their risk when the incidents occur. This kind of collaborations, ICA Ghana is very open to it. Already, we have been engaging with the insurance companies on some other aspects, for instance, the debt um, exchange issues. ICA and NIC had very good collaboration on that, and then we were able to guide on the standards that had to be used. So I believe there are opportunities for us to work together with the insurance company. Thank you.
But we plead with our online audience. Kindly type your message in the Q&A session. Unfortunately, if you raise your hand, we can't give you access to speak at the moment. So please type your question in the Q&A session. Thank you.
I feel
ICA, of course, EC is here with us, should look at how to, direct government policy, because it has to be a push and a pull from both sides. We can't just have the standards and we're happy that there are standards, but who is demanding for those standards apart from the international partners? The demand has to be local as well. So unless there is policy that is making people report to show that they've been sustainable, then, like President said, then there's really no point. We'll just be doing this for a few international bodies. And my last point is that as ICA has set up a committee to look at the standard itself, then maybe there needs to be a committee to look at the policies that are impacted by the standard, so that as we create the push and pull, as Mr. Situ said, we are creating a market for ourselves. The more people are going to demand sustainability reports. I hope I've made sense. Thank you.
You have been heard clearly. I don't know whether our panel members would like to comment on that.
Yes. As a matter of fact, what I was going to say was linked to what Madam Agnes just said, because it's very important that we know why we are doing it more than doing it just because we are going to tick the box against a certain standard. Let's not forget that this whole sustainability standards, ESG conversation are also linked into what is known as the Sustainable Development Goals, by which 2030 all countries and jurisdictions that have signed up to that UN Global Compact would have complied with all those 17 pillars that underpin the Sustainable Development Goals. And they are broad and varied. So, for example, if we talk about eradication of poverty, can you imagine? How do we eradicate poverty, as a nation? And yet it's a sustainable development goal. All right. It was more or less cascaded as ESG, environment, social, and governance, to corporates. All right. And it is this same corporate responsibility that is now being enshrined in the S1 and S2 for consistency and comparative reporting. So the linkages are there. But I'm saying this to let us all understand that government itself ought to be cued into this conversation and not look at it as an isolated conversation for accountants. But they themselves are going to have to also prove, without reasonable doubt, what measures they have taken in order to comply with those sustainable development goals, by which in 7 years' time we should have accomplished. Okay, so it's a broader conversation, and within the ICA, the committee that has been set up, is going to do a lot of stakeholder identification and mapping in order to identify which segments of the society needs to be engaged at what level and what inputs are going to be required to make sure that they are all buying into how, as a nation, we are going to go about this responsible, sustainable conversation and thereby make ourselves attractive in the Committee of Nations for Green Finance.
That's good. And this reminds me the slogan, half for all by the year 2020. We are in the year 2023 anyway. The Facebook comment.
Okay, so we go to our Facebook question. And the first one is from Eugene Pakwisi Adai. And his question is, aside the investor nature focus of these standards, S1, S2, how can we ensure the awareness of this standard and to know industries within which business sector it fits?
Mr. Andy Akoto would like to start.
Okay, let me just give it a shot. I'm sure my co-panelists would also. So in fact, this session is one of the programs that is being put together in a series of public engagements by which the Institute, together with its partners, will be engaging public and segments of our business community, so that we are all carried along in terms of what we should be doing to prepare adequately to comply with these standards. If it comes to the Institute of Chartered Accountants itself, the committee, and I'm sure Madam President will be able to speak to that, is looking at how well they go about targeted communication and information for the benefit of various segments of the society. We are talking about also awareness, increasing and deepening the awareness and understanding of what these standards entail, as well as advocacy. Okay, because I can foresee a scenario where we cannot envisage all sectors and all sizes of companies being ready to comply with S1 and S2 from year one. No. Okay, but even for those that are not going to comply, how do we encourage them to do voluntary reporting and begin to put themselves in a way that they identify the bigger reason why they should be paying attention to this standard? So I believe there's a lot more to come from the Institute together with its partners. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor. Would like to, and then Madam President.
All right. So as we are waiting for the institute to come up with all these initiatives, interventions, I think for the individual, you need to take a step. What steps are you supposed to take? Number one, assess the standard for yourself. Assess the standard for, meaning go to the website, download the standard, and then start getting used to the terminologies in there. You can also, in fact, the ISSB does what they call the monthly podcast. So go and subscribe to the monthly podcast. Now that we are also in this era, be interested in the ISSB's meetings. You can observe the meetings. When they are having the meetings, go to the website, just join, watch. You are an observer because they are discussing a lot of issues that is going to affect you. So be an observer of the ISSB meetings. And then probably lastly, you can, the same website, you can go there and then subscribe to news alert. So once you subscribe to the news alert, you'll be receiving news from the ISSB right on your phone. Thank you very much.
Certainly so. Jamil would like to. Okay.
So just one quick point. I think at ACC we are continuing to also break things down in terms of what this means. So for those who will be interested, next week, 25th of July, we are going to publish a new report. It's called the Guide to Becoming a Value-Adding CFO, Integrated Thinking. And I think you should be able to address some of the points related to the question that has been asked. Thank you.
Good. Then, Madam President, you would like to add to the discussion?
Yeah, thank you very much. If accountants would succeed in doing the integrated reporting very well, then the business leaders must be committed. And that is to mean that we need to go beyond accountants understanding what we are doing and get into the business world for everybody to come along with us. It is a collective effort. It is going to be transformational. We need the policymakers to appreciate what we are doing. We need to be able to get our communities to even understand that it is not going to be sustainability at business level, but even at household level. And that is why we made the 3 declarations earlier on that attitudinal change is part of the process. We need also our foreign investors to have confidence in what Ghana can do and put in a lot more effort to help us build their businesses and investments. We also looking at where a situation where the accountants will become advocates and be the voice of sustainability in Ghana and beyond. Ladies and gentlemen, it's very, very interesting that this opportunity must not pass us by. And that is why ICA Ghana is taking the sustainability agenda very, very keenly. And in September, we'll still be having another engagement. And that's going to be at Kempiski. And we'll be engaging one aspect, which is our well-being and our health and the planet. We hope that the other engagements we would have opportunity to share information with all of you to be part of it. Thank you.
Okay, so over to you, Mr. Hansen.
Okay, thank you. So we still progress on Facebook, and we'll move to Emmanuel Mensah. And his question is, how does this standard affect our SMEs in this country? How does these standards affect our SMEs in this country? Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Akoto, if you want to start, then Komna will come in.
Okay, so let me begin from one of our pre-budget surveys. In fact, last year, before the budget was read, KPMG issued a survey to the business community. You know, our business community is made up largely of SMEs. And it will interest you to know that about 52.9, which is more than 50% of respondents, for example, were very, very unequivocal that illegal mining is affecting their operations. Okay, and I'm not talking about SMEs situated close to the mining sites, but remotely, they are feeling the pinch. So as far as I'm concerned, in terms of impact, everybody should rally around to help us comply with these standards, because believe you me, it will go and speak to some of these societal ills that are plaguing our economy as we speak. All right. SMEs are very, very important participants in the economy. All right. If we get, if you like, what we call it, a stunted economic growth, they are going to be impacted. If inflation is heading skywards, they are going to be impacted. Okay. And so therefore, they should all be part of the conversation to shape responsible governance, as I keep on coming back to, because it's at the heart of this sustainability conversation. All right. But specifically, in terms of reporting, to the extent that they are also part of the business community, they should be ready to also report on their own subscription to the sustainability standards. Because, as we all noted, it's just a matter of time. And therefore, what we are saying is that when you file your annual financial statements, it is not only just going to focus on the financials, but those non-financials that are now being more rigorously scrutinized. Okay, scrutinized, because the standards are very, very clear on the benchmarks that all corporates that are going to report will have to comply with. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Governor Situ.
Yeah, spot on. But just to add, for the SMEs, they are likely to use the IFRS for SMEs. Now, I happen to be part of the SME implementation group of the ISSB. And in the last meeting we had, which was 13th July, what happened? That wasn't an agenda, because in the previous meeting, it came up and we said the conclusion was, okay, the S1 and S2 has just been released. Let's wait and steady and see how it goes. Then along the line, we will now pick it and make it more suitable for the SME. So for now, it's not on the agenda of the IFRS for the SME. That's the SME implementation group. But in the future, it will be. But as Andy said, you don't have to wait. You can voluntarily, adapt because of the benefits that you have. Yeah, thanks.
Jamel, then.
Yeah, I just wanted to maybe add that maybe globally from an ACCA perspective, we believe strongly that SMEs play a critical role and will have to contribute for us to achieve a net zero world. So they cannot be sort of exempt from sustainable business practices and reporting. I mean, it is the scale that would have to be looked at. And so, Governor, we look forward to your committee's updates in the near future. But I guess from an ACCA position, we are clear that SMEs also have a role to play.
So perhaps a watered down version of it. Madam President, if you want to contribute.
Yeah, thank you. And to ICA Ghana, SME is the future for us all, and we should look out. But SMEs beyond the standard, let's take one of the advice that came in the declaration, the energy consumption. If your stationary costs can be reduced because you are applying sustainability little tidbits and sending more mails and not printing much, you have reduced your stationary costs. If your lights are not left and your AC left in an open office where nobody is seated, that is reduction of cost. That is financing. That is going to affect your operational costs. That would improve your revenue at the end of the day. So let's look at the kind of waste that we can get ourselves controlling as SMEs to be able to capitalize on the sustainability issues we are talking about, and not only the reporting alone. Thank you.
Yes, indeed. Let's turn to Mr. Hansen.
Thank you, sir. So for us not to be one-way-sided or one way, we're moving to the Zoom link where we had a lot of participants as well. There's a question which has been touched though, but I want to mention it, and it's from Muntari. And his question is, what is the current state of sustainability reporting in Ghana? I know it's been touched on. So I'll move to the next question. And that is from Stephen Jamina Kwachi, and his is, with the issues relating to sustainability, we know governments of various economies around the world have a huge responsibility as they are supposed to protect the environment, among others. What would the new standards, S1 and S2, impact on public sector accounting processes?
That's fine. So
Are we
you
okay,
want to
or should I
take,
take
are there
it?
more questions?
Yeah, there
Maybe
are more questions.
let's take another one, then we
Okay.
go to the panelist. Whilst waiting for that, okay, let's the panelists give a response if you have. And so who would like to go first on the public sector?
Yeah, so with the public sector, they've started a project actually so that they also develop their own equivalent of the S1, S2. So that is work in progress. And yeah, so when it comes up, we'll deal with the matter. Yes.
That is true. So for public sector, for practitioners, they will have their own standards to apply. We are talking about IS 5000 for practitioners, that assurance. Yeah. Any other question?
Yes. So I'll take three at this time. So all the three are answered. And this one is from Michael. And this question is, how well have we embraced integrated reporting to add responsibility, to add sustainability reporting as a nation or for companies? How well have we embraced integrated reporting to add sustainability reporting as a nation or for companies? The next one is from Muntari. To what extent is the Ghana Stock Exchange involved in the discussion on sustainability reporting? To what extent is the Ghana Stock Exchange involved in the discussions on sustainability and reporting? And the last one before you come on board is, please, I want to ask how audit and assurance firms will ensure their clients adhere to the standards 1 and 2. How assurance firms will ensure their clients adhere to the S1 and S2. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So let's take the first question. Yes.
Okay, so I think I'll take it from there.
Okay,
So the
so
third
from
one,
third. Okay.
because it's very simple. So
Okay.
as I said earlier, we are having the ISA 5000 coming up. When it comes up, it will guide people in carrying out an audit on these sustainability issues. So August is just around the corner. It will come up, and then in fact they want to really finalize that ISA before the year end. So when the standard itself becomes effective from 1st January 2024, we are likely, very likely to have an ISA 5000 standard to deal with that. Yes. So I think
Integrated thinking and sustainability reporting.
that one is a big one. I think ACCA did is it a conference on that? I was the speaker actually on integrated reporting, and I think Jamil said when I showed them one of such a report, I think people started really thinking. But the difficulty with integrated reporting is connecting the financial with the non-financial. In fact, that is the big, because whatever financial figures you have must speak to some non-financial, things in there. So, but I think when you start the journey and you begin to now, one, identify your data requirement, two, identifying the material sustainability related risks and opportunities, then you begin to now start thinking. So, what risk management processes do I need to put in place? Do I have them? If I don't have them, what do I do? So just start the journey. You realize everything will come in perfectly. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Then Mr. Akoto would like to add.
Okay.
Yes. Just to also add that as far as integrated reporting is concerned, we are talking about the connectivity, as my co-panelist Kwabena has said, between the financial and the non-financial. And if you look at the S1, S2 standards that have come out, it envisages a situation where you have your financials, you also have your
non-financials based on the S1, S2. Okay. At some point, there will have to be some linkages, as Kobna is saying, because a number of the things that you do, even if they are non-financial, may have financial implications. Even as a nation, at that level, Ghana itself, in subscribing to the Sustainable Development Goals, commissioned a report to look at the country financing roadmap in order to be able to ascribe to these sustainability goals that they've signed up to. And in fact, Ghana was the first country. So for example, we work with the World Economic Forum to develop a paper on that. And the government right now is looking how to access funding in this respect. So whichever way you look at it, the two are inextricably linked, but the mechanics of making sure that they talk to each other is still a work in progress. I know, for example, I also serve on what is known as the Ghana Association of Integrated Thinking and Reporting, which is also beginning to look at how they also help deepen the conversation and the practicality of bringing about a very, very good integrated reporting framework, for the nation as well as for corporates. The Ghana Stock Exchange is clearly involved in the conversation. They themselves last year issued their own sustainability reporting standard based on the Global Reporting Initiative framework. So that standard has already been issued. The extent of reporting and compliance, I cannot speak to. But I know that the Ghana Stock Exchange is deeply involved in this conversation, and they have come up with their own standards because obviously they deal with public interest entities, and they must safeguard the interest of the wider stakeholder community in terms of the responsible governance and practices that their stakeholders work with. Thank you.
Yeah, just to add to what Andy said, so that's why within the steering committee there is the stakeholder subcommittee. So the stakeholder subcommittee, which I happen to chair, we are going to speak to the Ghana Stock Exchange, of course, look at what they have, look at what the S1 and S2 is bringing on board. How can we marry the two? So such engagements will happen. So definitely that issue. Yeah.
Yes, Madam President would like to be okay.
Okay, I think they are also members of the steering committee. The steering committee was well represented with them as part of it.
Yes, Jamil.
Yeah. So just going back to the first question, the way I understood the question was, how well have we embraced integrated reporting? And so if I interpret it literally, well, we probably didn't do a good job of integrated reporting. Why are we now adding another one? So I just wanted to clarify that, in a lot of jurisdictions, it wasn't mandatory to report. And therefore, that was the reason why, in many jurisdictions, that wasn't the case. So I can't speak for Ghana, but I doubt, because I'm a member of CA. I don't think we were supposed
Not
to.
yet.
Not yet. It wasn't mandated. Yeah. So just to be clear, it wasn't mandated. In places like South Africa, where it was mandated, it's clear you have to do it. In some countries, it's comply or explain. So I think it's important to just clarify that. What S1, S2 is going to do, and I think Kwabena touched on that, is really pulling together everything. I mean, we have too many disparate, if you like, standards or requirements which can be brought together under one roof. And I think that is really the exciting news. So it should be seen as a positive rather than a negative. And it's not a failure at all. I just want the person who raised the question to get that clearly. Thanks.
Thank you for the clarification. Back to Hansen.
Thank you very much. So I also want to say that we have a representative from SEC here. So whatever we are discussing, as part of they being on the steering committee, there's a representative here too. And we move straight. The next question is from Joseph Boatin. And his question, working on sustainability requires some funding support for SMEs. How are we also working around getting some sustainability-based funding? How are we getting sustainability-based funding? The next question, the person wants us to summarize the S1 and S2. And I know by the close of the session, that will be done. So they get a brief idea about it. The next one is from Kingsley, and this is directed to Mr. Kuto. And he says, Mr. Kuto said that some industries have already commenced reporting on the standards. What are these firms, and if so, who regulates such reports? So I want us to take these two, then we move. Mr. Koto said some industries have already commenced reporting on the standards. What are these firms? And if so, who regulates such reports? Thank you.
So once your name has been mentioned, then you start first.
Yes. So, in fact, the Sustainability Accounting Standards Board, upon which the ISSB based, quite a majority of its own S1, S2 standards, already has some industry-specific reporting disclosures, okay, in place. So I know there's a industry-specific reporting for the financial services sector. It's already in existence. There's one for the telecom sector. There's one for the biofuels, and I think about 3 or 4 others. And like Wabna said, this is not the end. They are going to go on and issue more standards in the course of time. In Ghana, because we don't have the mandatory or comply or explain regime in place, these are being done, for example, on a voluntary basis. So, for example, if you have some South African firms operating here, because their mother countries are requiring the integrated reporting, they're already ascribing to some of these principles. But Ghanaian entities, we can't say that for as yet. So that's what I can say to that. In terms of summarizing the standards, yes, I believe there will be more releases and communique from the institute as well as from the steering committee of the institute as time goes on. And then in terms of industry
support for SMEs to implement
support for SMEs, sustainability-based funding.
Yes.
I don't have the answer, unfortunately.
Okay, so just to touch on what the standard is about, S1, at a very high level, the core content, whether S1, S2, is basically 4. One, it deals with issues of governance. 2, it deals with issues of strategy. 3, it deals with issues of risk management. And 4, it deals with issues of performance against targets matrices. So whether you take S1 or S2, you see that these 4 teams run through the 2 standards. So governance, strategy, risk management, performance against targets. Thanks.
Good. Jamel, want to add something? Okay, the president. Okay, that's fine. So for the funding question, we don't have the solution. Maybe the solution will come later on. Hans, you can go on with the question.
Thank you very much. So after this set of questions, I would want us to also engage our in-person participants if they have any question or contribution. The next question is from Andrews Amankwa, and he says, what relationship does the standards IFRS 1 and 2 have with ESG reporting, environmental, social, and governance reporting? How is it going to be treated or reported in the business annual report? The next one from Amadou, and he says, how are sustainability related risks and opportunities disclosed in a farming entity? How are sustainability related risks and opportunities disclosed in a farming entity? Can we please take two? Thank you.
You mean agriculture?
Agriculture.
Okay, fine.
Yes.
Good. So panelists, Masiti will start.
Okay, so when you are looking at the report, how the report is going to look like and all that, it starts from what we call materiality. Very important. You need to deal with the issue of materiality. So you need to identify those material risks risks and opportunities. That is the first step. Now, after you've done that, so then you look into governance issues. So your reporting should also touch on governance issues. Okay, so and I think Andy touched on those governance things. Then you now dive into what strategies are there in order to manage these material risks, that you've identified, and then that dovetails into the performance and targets and various and this thing and that you have said. So that is how the report will be structured. So you deal with governance. Governance is at the top. You need to deal with it because without governance, the rest of the things will fall. So governance is very important. Then you now come and identify those material risks that you need to deal with, and then it goes into the strategies and then performance and target. So, but throughout all these things, you need to also deal with the issue of materiality. You don't just want to be talking anyhow, but materiality. And then lastly, as you are drafting all these reports from governance to performance and targets, always have at the back of your mind integrated thinking, because these things, as you are drafting them, must talk to each other. Thank you.
That is fine, Mr. Koto.
Yes. Just to be clear, in terms of the question on the relationship between the S1, S2 standards and ESG, I would want to say that they are practically on the same wavelength. Because as I intimated earlier on, ESG is a cascaded SDG for corporates and entities. And because S1 and S2 are for corporates and entities by way of reporting, most of the standards are aligned with the environment, social, and governance practices of entities that are supposed to be reporting to these standards. So the linkages are quite clear. In terms of how you measure risk and opportunities in the agri sector, very, very, very interesting, because the agri sector, as you note, are also being enjoined to ascribe to some responsible farming methods and practices. So, for example, if you are selling cocoa, which we can all identify with, they want to make sure that the cocoa ascribe to certain governance principles, devoid of things like child labor, okay, and the application of certain what we call it, chemicals, fertilizers, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, what is interesting is that measuring these risks and opportunities are not easy. And as far as I'm concerned, the tools for measuring the data elements and the attributes in the agri sector are still evolving. I have engaged with a company called BankU, okay, which has already started piloting how they collect and aggregate data from farming fields all the way to the factory production and processing floor to the retail consumer. So they developed a certain application that allows the farmer, once he is part of the value chain, to be able to file some of these data indices from their phones. Okay, so the tools for measuring these indices in the agri sector are still evolving. Okay, but what we have to note is that, as Jamel said, as with the extractive sector, the agri sector is also coming under serious scrutiny to make sure that consumers are given a fair deal in terms of exposure to what has been used to produce the agri outputs. Okay, so I can see the processes being refined in the course of time. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, just to add to what Andy said. So that's why it's very important that you start the journey now, because then you begin to identify the various professionals you need along this journey. So start the journey now. Very important.
Good. And Mr. President?
Okay, thank you. Because agric is very critical to the livelihood of everybody animals and the world, the entire planet. Okay, so I think the agric economics is becoming very, very critical, and it's an area that it's important. A lot more people get involved. Now, the issue beyond this value change, which Andy mentioned, is food safety. And so, where chemicals are even being applied for consumption by animals, for consumption by humans, there is the need to look at the sustainability and how it affects us and the impact on our health. And all this can be part of the risk, and at the same time, certain opportunities to invest into solving these problems can come up. So I think the issue about agric is important in the sustainability discussion and must not be overlooked.
Thank you also for your comments. Hansen, about
Yes,
you.
there's a lot. I wanted us to engage our in-person participants as well, but then the questions are many, so let's move on. So then we are now moving to YouTube. We are moving to YouTube. And the first question is from Gilbert Ansanyurinchi. And his question is, what is the Institute doing to assist firms benefit from the funds available for ESG while they comply with the standards? The knowledge gap is making implementation difficult. What is, as long as my panelists are smiling, then they've got the question. So we move to another one.
Let's go to number 2.
Yes, and number 2. Okay. And this one is from Emmanuel Kwashi. And his question is, in this country, politicians aim to manipulate the resources of the country. How will this standard combat or limit the actions of these people? We move into politics now. In this country, politicians aim to manipulate the resources of the country. How will this standard combat or limit the actions of these people? Thank you.
Right. I think question 2 can be answered another time. So let's answer the question 1. Madam President, any funding from ICAG for ESG issues?
ICA Ghana has not got any funding for this yet. What we are encouraging is businesses should take sustainability issues seriously and be able to save costs and be able to increase their yields and increase their wealth. I believe the investors' confidence will be increased when they see that we have the capacity to be able to have good stewardship of whatever they have put in, and probably we would also take part of the Paris allocations that are from the other worlds. Thank you.
Okay, Sakuto.
Yes, I would like to look at it from another angle in terms of the investment the Institute is making in terms of the education and the capacity building that is going to be rolling out in the months to come, in the weeks to come, in order to help prepare organizations to better comply with these standards. And for me, it's a win-win because if you're an organization and you are seen to be complying with S1, S2, funding automatically, believe you me, would accrue to your organization because you become attractive to the foreign investor or participant. Okay, and I'm not too sure whether in this country we've gotten the awareness enough, but out there in the advanced economics, in sustainability is a big deal. And very soon, if you're a business that you are looking to partner with another company in Europe, US, or whatever, they'll be asking for your sustainability credentials. All right. And once you're able to present these credentials in the form of some of your reports, the funding will automatically accrue to you. So for me, we shouldn't put the cart before the horse. Let's just rather prepare ourselves and make ourselves attractive to attract the kind of fund, because there's a lot of money flowing around, believe you me. And the reason why the Institute, and for that matter, Ghana immediately responded to the ISSB's request in terms of rolling out of these standards was to signal to the global community that Ghana is also going to position itself readily to be a partner in this sustainability conversation, and by extension, sending a positive signal that we can also work with light thinking partners. In terms of manipulation of resources, I'm not too sure how we can deal with that, so I wouldn't go
So
there.
that will be another.
But Jamil
Yeah,
has
Jamil
something to
want
say.
to
Maybe you might talk about that.
comment on the first question.
I'm not a politician, and I don't want to go there. So just on the ESG money, and there was a question around, oh, when are we going to get funding for SMEs? And I think we didn't respond to that. So I think it's important because it's the second time this has come up. So I just want to clarify that there are opportunities to be given some funding if from a carbon angle, where we know that countries that are maybe net contributors would gain, and they gain from those who are depleting, and it's all linked to sustainability. But I think beyond that, when we look at our S1, S2, I think what we are trying to say is that these are reporting standards that actually enhance and give a much, if you like, holistic picture of the performance of an organization. And therefore, it makes good business sense to actually do it. So I would just want us to move away from the thinking that, well, we need to get money to do this. I don't think that is the right trajectory. There is a recognition that small, medium enterprises are financially challenged relative to large organizations. And I'm confident that a lot of the work that the institute is doing with the committee is to make sure that you provide adequate guidelines so that those who are probably smaller organizations, will have a much more straightforward approach. And they are more, if you like, less complex organizations, by the way. So maybe their reporting requirements, when that time comes, may not be as complicated. But for me, it's also good to bring it down to a very simple analogy. And this is the way I think about sustainability. If I want to go and buy, let's say, wachi by the roadside, and I go to two vendors. There's one who's in a very nice, it's in glass, caged, everything nice. And there's another one by the gutter. I'll go to the one by the glass because I'm thinking of my health. So I think that if you think about sustainability, you have to think about
just a quick one.
Okay.
The gata watching is very
it's the best. It's the best. well, maybe I should have used another example. I know you are going to say that. So yeah. Someone told me they're looking for makala rice. I won't go into that. But the point I'm making is that at some stage you need to think about, you need to compare, and organizations will get to a stage, as Andy said, where even in Ghana, one day we'll get to the stage where if you go to the bank, you're being assessed for finance, they may actually look at non-financial, information. So I just want us to move away from thinking, we need money before we can do this. I don't think that is a conversation that we should go down in terms of the route. And I would maybe urge the committee to factor that into the education program. Thank you.
Thanks for a perspective. Madam President, I want to add.
Yeah, thank you very much. I know the question on the political manipulation is a very thorny one, but we are privileged to have our own colleague and Director General, that's how I always call it, but I may be wrong, of IOCO. Probably she can have some insight on how we can imbibe sustainability in economic crime, if there is any thoughts and ideas to share with us. Thank
So
you.
we have COP, Mrs. Mamiya Tiwa Adodankwa, Executive Director, IOCO.
Thank you very much. Let me share my thoughts on that area. If you take your mind back when we had a financial sector cleanup, one of the issues that came up was the fact that most of them didn't go through proper approval system to grant loans. Some of the loans were not paid. and some of them didn't do due diligence in that area. Some of them intentionally, they decided because they knew that most of the financial institutions will not do due diligence. So they provided certain information that turned out not to be accurate, or they turned out to be forged or something. So going forward, we need to make sure that we put systems in place. When we want to, if we say we want to put some systems in place, we should ensure that people follow those systems. We should ensure that there wouldn't be any corner cuttings and then doing all those sort of things. Because at the end of the day, those in other jurisdictions where things are done better, they are not better than us. It is about the systems and the implementation and how we can go through our system to ensure that some of the things that we have suffered in the past wouldn't be repeated. And that is all about how we can sustain it. But let me also add that fighting financial crime and investigating and bringing evidence together in financial crime area is very, very difficult. So prevention is key. That put measures to prevent this from occurring, be on our way to an area where we'll be sustainable. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam.
So, Madam is a past president of council. Sorry, past council member and past president of our.
So, Hans, you can go on with the questions.
Great. This one is more of a thesis, and it comes like an ICAG question. So it's from Samuel Mensah, and it reads, ISSB establishes a worldwide baseline of sustainability disclosure to fulfill the requirements of capital markets, therefore enhancing market-wide openness, accountability, efficiency, and comparability. First question, what effect may the early adoption of S1 and S2 by Ghanaian enterprises have on the country's ability to attract additional investment and foster private sector growth? That's question one. Technical Director, III. What contributions did ICAG and other national organizations made to the issuance of S1 and S2? Does ICAG have a copy of the communique issued at the Aqua Sustainability Connecting the Dots conference in Abidjan? If so, please publish for the website. Thank you.
Okay. So the first question, early adoption to attract an investment. Who would like to have a go of it? Madam President, want to start with it?
Okay, thank you very much. It was a great thing for ICA Ghana to be represented, and I think amongst during the launch at Lagos, it was ICA Ghana, ACCA, Zimbabwe, and South Africa that were present, and ICA Ghana was very, very instrumental in contributing in some of the public discussions. And what we said is that since this is investor focused, any capacity building opportunity that is available, Ghana as a pesetter should be considered. If you adopt early and you start putting your house in order, you would attract the development partners who are ready to invest in that area, and it will not only be one country, maybe Nigeria being the focal person for ISSB, but Ghana would have been ready to also support Nigeria. That partnership is very key, and I think we have positioned ourselves very strategically to be able to take advantage of this.
Okay, Madam President, okay, City would like to.
So just to talk about starting early, I think it's very important. If you adopt early, you see the standard has been structured in a way that there is a lot of transitional reliefs. So just take advantage of it. So you go to the transitional reliefs, they make it easy for you to adopt this thing. So just start. There are a lot of reliefs for you.
Yeah. Yes, that is very true. So in terms of ICAG involvement, that had been said by the president already, both in his speech and in her responses. Now, let's go on to the next question. You have 15 minutes more to wrap up.
Well, we have 15 minutes to wrap up this session. The next question is from Valentine Mensah. And the question is, the Companies Act in most jurisdictions, like the UK and Kenya, cover the requirements of sustainability or ESG in their director's report. However, Ghana's Company Act does not currently cover adequately on ESG requirements. Is the Office of the Registrar of Companies being engaged by ICAG to ensure that the Companies Act is timely reviewed?
Yes, Madam President, want to start? Okay.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Just today, I had an engagement because the board of the Office of the Registrar of Companies and the Council of ICA Ghana will be meeting shortly, and some of this Company Act amendment issues would come up. There are things that the Office of the Registrar is keenly pursuing, which ICA Ghana should be supporting, because if financial statements are part of the returns, how prepared are the staff of the Office of the Registrar to be able to assess and determine that what has been presented are okay? ICA Ghana is going to work with ORC to be able to see what revisions will be required, and when need be, we'll jointly present something to Parliament. Thank you.
Kwabena would like to add?
Yeah, so I think within the same Companies Act, you realize that it says that whatever the ICA adopt is what companies to apply. So once ICA is adopting the S1, S2, then automatically.
That's the reason. This is true.
Exactly.
For some jurisdiction, they have to do some regulatory amendments before they can adopt the new standard. But you don't have to, because there's that omnibus clause in the Companies Act that allows us to adopt any other standards issued by IFRS Foundation, and it goes into effect. Thanks. Can we go on to the next question?
Well, now our questions are exhausted here.
Okay, fine.
Thank you.
That is very good. The maybe in-person
Yes.
audience. All right, good. Oh, I see you want to make a statement. Mhm.
Just to add to what you have all said, the person that was asking if ICAG has been involved in the processes. There was one key one which I'm thinking probably not being highlighted. Is ICAG contributing to it through the discussion and then reporting on the exposure drafts that established the standards. We did that at the very early stages, and I think we need to put that on record.
That is very true. July 2022, we submitted our comments on the standard. Right. So at this juncture, we would like our panelists to give us their closing remarks, because we are getting close to the end of the discussion. And let's start with Mr. Kuto. If you can start for us.
Well, I believe a lot has been said. What I can say as a member of the ICA Ghana Steering Committee is that the Institute is putting its shoulders to the wheel to ensure that we work assiduously to embrace these standards, because as we can all see, there are a lot of benefits. Perhaps we didn't get into it in detail, but clearly there are a lot of benefits in adopting these standards and working with them. We need the support of all stakeholders, and therefore there will be a number of consultative meetings, workshops, stakeholder engagements, and we ask for collaboration so that together we can go ahead and declare boldly as a nation our state of readiness to adopt come the year 2024. What I would also want to encourage all of us to do, as some of my panelists have said, is to also pay attention to the ISSB website, the International Sustainability Standards Boards, because there are going to be a lot of pronouncements, a lot of news releases and alerts, and a lot of education and webcasts as well, so that we can all begin to work and learn and place ourselves in a state of readiness to also go on this journey because it holds a lot of potential, not only at the macro level, but as individuals, as entities, as corporates, we can clearly buy into this and help build a sustainable future for generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jamil, your closing comments.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank the ICAG for the invitation. I'm very pleased that I have had the opportunity to share this platform with you. Reflecting on the conversation today, I just wanted to also note that at ACCA, we have more or less embarked on this journey of trying to reflect the non-financial aspects of how we operate for many, many years. And it probably occupies about 80 to 90% of our financial, well, I say our annual report, not financial report. Now, I'm saying this because I think whilst we talk about S1, S2, you find that the level of thinking, the level of consideration that needs to go into preparing, the sustainability report would need a level of commitment, so that we've talked about greenwashing, so that it's not just ticking the boxes, but really genuinely ensuring that it's done with positive intent. So that is very important, and I think our stakeholders who are with us today, whether they are preparers, whether they are going to be users, or indeed practitioners, should always bear that in mind. Another point for me is around collaboration and partnerships, and being clear that one cannot go alone. So as we embark on this journey, we need to always remind ourselves that we need to bring along the key partners. We've talked about government. We've talked about some institutions such as the Registrar General. I'm sure there are many others who will need to come along on this journey. 1st of January is just around the corner. Therefore, I'll just urge the steering committee to be clear about, the key stakeholders to engage, map and get them around the table so that we have a successful launch. It's not just about us. I think if there's any parting shot I want to leave, it's not just about us accountants. There are others involved. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Komnasi too.
All right, thank you very much. So I think what I'll say is this. I think Andy mentioned it. Get to the website of the ISSB, very important. What they have also done on the website is they've created a group called the Transition Implementation Group, which is like an open forum where you can post questions and you will have help. So get to the website, subscribe to it. Number two, also access the standard and then get used to the fundamental concept within S1, because that is the starting point. Number three, I think when you go to the website, you can listen to these monthly podcasts. And then also make sure you are observing the ISSB meetings. I think, and then also subscribe to news alerts. That is very, very important. Capacity building starts now. Start the journey now. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, finally, the president, Sanadake.
Thank you very much. And I want to plead with you to break protocol. Our senior and past president is here. I would like him to say a few words before I talk. Thank you.
Okay, that's in place.
Mr. President, fellow accountants, in fact, I'm not supposed to talk at this meeting at all because I decided not to talk at all. I find myself as if I'm in a foreign country. I say that because I've seen a great change, and I'm happy that I'm alive today to see the Institute in this way. I was a president of the Institute in 1984, 86. And
one of the I trained as an ACCA and then qualified in 1964 and joined the institute in 1965. And I worked with PricewaterhouseCoopers, and they were the practicing firms, Coopers, Deloitte, Cassini Elliott, or now Pitt Marwick. They are the pillars on which the institute was built, led by our first president, who was then an educationist, Mr. R.S. Samagashi. I follow the institute until recently when it became another world. You have to enter into a computer world before you know whatever happens. And with the problems associated with old age, for instance, the eye is not seen properly, or if even you change it, as I've changed my lenses yet, they are not the same as the natural ones, because most of the functions of the eye, the lens is gone because you cannot relate very well with the brains. So you forget a lot of things and so on. But I try as much as possible to follow the institute. I'm very proud of this institute. And when I have time, I used to come. I attended the last 2 years. I missed this year's CS AGM because I don't get the hard copies of the notices, so I have to go to somewhere else to find it on the websites or whatever the case is. And it becomes a new world to me. So I don't get closely in touch. But yesterday I had this call that this is coming on. I said, I have to, this is a very important discussion. And whatever the case is, since I can walk and I can talk and see a little bit, I have to be with my people. So I'm very happy that I'm here with you. I see, I look around, and that makes me sit very quietly. That most of my colleagues who should have joined or have often seen are not there. So I thank God for this day. And I'm very, very happy to see the progress that you have chopped and also the quality of people you have produced. This program of sustainable program is a very great thing. But one thing that I would like, these things are linked up also with the ethics and the integrity of our members. And what I really feel is that as much as we are doing very much to help the institute, to help our business, to help the environment, and these things are to be performed through our members, we must build in them that trust, that sort of ethics of, the etiquette, the ethics of the profession, which is integrity, should be upheld. Because once we lose that, whatever we are doing is in vain. And this program is one of programs which gives some of us the assurance that we are still conscious of our responsibilities as accountant, and we want to play our role in the community. Usually old people talk too much, so I'll stop here. And thank you very much for the opportunity giving me.
Thank you, Mr. President. Now let's go to the current president, Senator Ako, for her closing remarks.
Thank you very much. My president has spoken. He's spoken on our behalf. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, it's been very insightful and enlightening. It is said that a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. But looking at the journey that we have to go, our journey is more than 1,000 miles. So we don't need a single step, but double steps. So they can be at par with those who have taken the lead. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being here. I've been talking to Mr. Andy Akoto, a partner with consulting and compliance at APMG, and then Jamil Amponsa, ACC Director Africa, Ampoma, sorry. Then Kovna Situ, partner assurance Deloitte, And last but not the least, ICAG President Sena Dake. I am Osei Kweku Ejeji your moderator. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please sit. Please sit. So I believe we've been able to work within time, and we should appreciate the Institute for that. So we could give ourselves a big clap for that. We will take a vote of thanks. But before we do that, kindly permit me to inform you that in connection with standards, the Institute has put up a post-chartered diploma course in ESG, and the course starts on 2nd September. So we would want to inform our online audience. If you are interested, kindly go to www.icagh.org and then register for the course. Secondly, the Institute's 60th anniversary presidential launching comes off on 28th September at Kempinski Hotel, and we hope to have you all there. Registration is ongoing at the moment, so kindly visit our website as well to do the registration. I would want to call on the chairman of the technical, the chairman for this committee, which has put everything together, to give us a vote of thanks. So kindly welcome Dr. Isaac Nyami to do us that favor. He's not here yet. Last one for him. Thank you.
Thank you very much. First of all, let me say um, thanks to God for giving us a day like this to be able to come here to gather together, giving us the opportunity of life to meet together and deliberate over these things, which are very important for our own self and for our national development. And uh, God has worked through people to bring us this far. And just imagine these wonderful people sitting on the podium. They really delve into matters that hitherto we did not fathom what it was going to be. I believe many of you, before you came, you were wondering this sustainability. How do accountants get involved in sustainability and all of that? But at least by now, we are feeling a bit more relaxed. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for being so wonderful. You made us very proud and very comfortable now. And I believe the journey, like they kept saying, the journey has started. So that journey, we are ready to move. Thank you very much, and God bless you. Thank you. Um, our former president, thank you for making the time to come around and join us. We love your presence, and we thank you for your words of your few words. Uh, Participants on the online platform. Thanks for being available. I hear you are many, and that's wonderful for us. Uh, Let the fire burn, and let's keep on going. Let's keep contributing. Let's keep participating, and keep asking the questions and keep challenging the status quo. And let's see at the end of the day, the country will benefit. ICA will benefit. All of us will benefit. Thank you so much, wherever you may be. And for all invited guests, council members, and the CEO, wonderful CEO, all of you, thank you so much for having made it possible. ACCA, you have always been around, and we've been very much involved lately with you. And this partnership, we believe that is going to end up somewhere better than it has been. And so, thank you so much for making the time to participate. Uh, my president, you did not only come to do armchair, you participated. You participated, and that was wonderful. That means that you are not an armchair president. You are somebody who actually actively involved, and we are very grateful for your time. And so, to all of you, including media and all other people I have not mentioned, I'd like to say thank you very much. And I believe that as the journey goes on, you will always be around for us, and so that we can all work together and make sustainability reporting and everything connected with well-being of human beings an important issue and an interesting issue. And at the end of the day, all of us will be happy as living beings. Thank you very much and have a nice evening. Oh, thank you very much. Just information coming in that ACCA pick all the bills. And ACCA, we are very, very, very grateful. And we'll continue to be grateful. And so please feel free, get back to us, whatever you want us to get involved in, and we'll surely connect with you. God bless you.
Thank you very much, Doc. Ladies and gentlemen, as part of activities marking the 60th anniversary of ICAG, the Institute has planned a very wonderful tour. We have both local and international. So for the international tours, we have Accra, Mauritius, Dubai, Accra, which comes off on the 13th to 20th October. And then the same international, we have Accra, Sao Tome Principe, Accra, which is on 13th to 18th October. And then we have Mauritius, Accra, Mauritius. Accra, Mauritius, Accra. And that is on the 13th to 20th October. Registration is ongoing. So we plead that those interested in this tour is going to be very exciting. And then we have the local one as well. We are yet to fix everything involved, but we've communicated them and we know you participate in all these tours. For the local one, it's going to be a weekend stay outside Accra. So we urge you all to be present and to participate. At this point, we've come to the close of our program for today. We're going to take a final prayer, which we are privileged to have our Muslim brother, Haruna, to take us through that. So kindly appreciate our gentleman, Haruna, to give us a Muslim prayer before we depart. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. I say thank you very much for this opportunity. In reverence to the Almighty God for this closing prayer, may we all stand up for the closing prayer. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. May we all sit down. Amen.
Thank you very much, Aruna. So, ladies and gentlemen, President, can you dismiss us because we are done?
On this note, this session is closed. Have a safe trip home and God bless you all.
Thank you all very much. And we will meet you on another platform. Thank you.